All righty, and we are back with another episode of the Discover Virginia Beach podcast, and we are actually expanding our search outside of the Virginia Beach area to our friends, our neighbors, and our good online friends in the Northern Virginia area. I'm Jordan with Yvonne today. Yvonne is a licensed realtor with Berkshire Hathaway, and she is a tremendous resource when it comes to all things figuring out what the Northern Virginia area has to offer, as well as how to make the most of your transition to the area, whether you're relocating, visiting the area, or relocating and transferring for military. Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Joseph. I'm happy to be here today.
Wonderful. Well, Yvonne, I really appreciate you jumping on. And a lot of people are probably scratching their head wondering why Virginia Beach is having any sort of conversation with Northern Virginia. And that goes back to the original premise of this podcast, of the Facebook group that I created, as well as the podcast, which is helping people discover all that the Virginia Beach area has to offer. And I definitely include Northern Virginia in that. With that said, I have a question for you, Yvonne. So I've heard it said a couple different ways. I've heard NoVA before, and I've heard of some like shorthand acronyms. Can you give us a little insight on that? If people are like researching Northern Virginia and they see the NoVA, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so NoVA is really the DC metropolitan area. Think of it as like the DC suburbs. So it's within commuting distance. It really includes all of Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, and Prince William County. And if you grew up in this area, it's NoVA to you. So
Awesome. I appreciate you clarifying that. Now, Yvonne, are you from the Northern Virginia area, or did you relocate there yourself?
So my family moved to Fairfax, Virginia when I was in kindergarten. And big surprise, the draw was really the schools and the jobs. And so I grew up right there in Fairfax. I've lived in various areas of Northern Virginia. I happen to live in Fairfax right now as well. And this is my stomping grounds. I service all of the Northern Virginia region. So on any given day, I could be right outside the city. I could be all the way out in, Leesburg or Purcellville. It just depends where my clients need me.
Absolutely. Well, Yvonne, I appreciate you sharing that, and also just kind of lighting up exactly just how big NoVA is. If you compare it to Hampton Roads, which is just very simply 7 cities kind of all hanging out together, NoVA is like, I think probably it feels like more than 7 cities.
Yeah, Fairfax County alone is huge. So
Awesome. Well, Yvonne, before we get into the real estate, because I would love to pick your brain from one realtor to another, okay. I'd like for you to share a little bit about what got you interested in sticking around, because I know a lot of people in our community, especially who are considering a move or just a visit to a new area, have come under different life circumstances. And I definitely understand, as you come out of school, for a lot of younger people, or maybe people returning to college, then you may have a little bit more options and flexibility for moving. So what exactly got you to stay in NoVA?
Definitely. So I went to college at Virginia Tech, and so I was in state, but just far enough away from the parents.
Right.
And I got recruited actually by a top agent in the area who had worked with my mom in real estate many, many years ago. So I had a little bit of knowledge from my mom's brief career in real estate. My dad also sold commercial real estate in San Francisco. I had an uncle in the business. And, I never really considered it as my definite career path. But once I started working with this top agent in the area and learning the ropes and seeing how, every day could be completely different and interesting, and I wouldn't be stuck in a 9-to-5 schedule, it just really grabbed my attention, and I developed a really strong passion for real estate. And Northern Virginia has such a strong real estate market, and I know it like the back of my hand. And so that was a real motivating factor for me, along with just, the communities here are beautiful. We have so many different places you can live. We have universities here. We have so much, some of the world's best, shopping. We have incredible schools. And when you just think about, okay, what do I see myself doing in the next 10, 15, 20 years? It's like some of the best options are right here in Northern Virginia. So that's why I chose to stay here.
Absolutely. Yvonne, thank you for sharing that. That's really cool because it seems like there is a certain trademark to what I typically call a home building trademark, whether you're an individual or you're, figuring out what to do with your family during the summer. It seems like there are these elements of whether that be housing, healthcare, and transportation that really kind of work themselves in together in these communities. And I want to talk a little bit more about this NoVA vibe here. So Yvonne, what does a typical person find themselves being able to do on a weekend trip to the Northern Virginia area? What does a perfect weekend look like?
Pick your choice, right? We have some gorgeous parks here. Great Falls National Park is one of the most beautiful, one of my personal favorites in the area. And you can get there within about 30 minutes drive of DC as well. So that's a big place where a lot of tourists come and visit. And whenever I have a client that's new to the area, I'm sure to mention it because it's gorgeous all year round. And then you also have so much entertainment and nightlife. A lot of us do drive into DC for concerts and, more social events. It's really not that far away from our perspective. If you're coming from a small town like, Blacksburg, where I went to school, it might seem like crazy that you would drive like 30, 45 minutes to get to where you're going for the night, but we do it all the time here. Driving is a big part of the lifestyle. And we also do have public transportation. So we've got the metro system that has recently been expanded. We've been waiting for this for, 10 years. But the Silver Line now takes you all the way to Dulles Airport. It takes you out to Loudoun County through Reston. And so it's all connected.
I'm so jealous of that. Yvonne, it seems like Hampton Roads is in a lot of ways still struggling with their battle like they had in the late 80s and 90s as more people came to the area. We just haven't gotten on the public transportation system like our northern neighbors. So that's so cool to hear about that. So public transportation, and then of course you do have to drive, but it's pretty much city, right? There's not much rural farmlands and such like that. It's pretty well.
I would say we're solidly suburban for the most part. If you are someone who doesn't want to have a car and you want a very walkable lifestyle, then you might consider areas like Arlington, where there's so many different metro stations and so much built where you can live, work, and play, right outside your front door. That's a great area. And then if you go far enough to Loudoun County, it does get more rural. And so Western Loudoun County is going to give you more of that farm lifestyle. If you go out to Percival, there's, a great barbecue spot and scenic lavender farms that you can visit on the weekends. And you can find what you're looking for, but you would want to go a little bit further to the outskirts.
Gotcha. Are there any hidden gems or places that you like if a client's coming in from out of town for like, let's say 48 hours and you get done touring houses, like what is your go-to hidden gem to recommend to every client that they have to try if they're in the Northern Virginia area?
Yeah, there's so many. So it depends because Northern Virginia is a big area. Like if they tell me, oh, we've got a hotel room in Falls Church, I'm going to say, well, you have to check out Mosaic District because they have fantastic restaurants. I think my favorite right now would probably be Our Mom Eugenia. It's fresh Greek food, and it is to die for. Everything is mwah. So, I'll send them in the direction of a couple of my favorite restaurants. We also have a really famous chef that's based in DC, Chef Jose Andres, and he's got a few restaurants in the area. So if they've got some time and they want to do a really nice dinner, I might send them out that way as well.
Wow, wonderful. That is so interesting. I didn't even know about the famous chef. What was his name again?
Jose Andres. So he's actually really well known for all of his charitable work as well. And he frequently, if there's like a disaster, a hurricane, he will frequently fly out and help feed people to get them through those tough times when they're not always able to be in a place where they can cook for themselves.
Wow, what an amazing person! I'm definitely going to have to check that out next time I'm in the Northern Virginia area for sure. And so, Yvonne, I want to shift the conversation a little bit more towards the real estate focus, because that is your trade, that is your skill set, and from what it sounds like on your background, that's really what you've been exposed to and really specialize in, both online and offline. What would you say is maybe the most common misconception that people have about realtors? And I'm just curious personally myself too, because whenever I'm meeting people online and like sharing with them about my community and such like that, it seems like there's always this stigma. And I have one in mind, but I want to hear from you too. Is there maybe one misconception that people get wrong about agents like every time?
I would say sort of the pushy used car salesman type of vibe is a big stereotype that I encounter a lot. And so what you'll see a lot of times is like the buyer walks into an open house, they're like this and trying to avoid contact because they think that you're going to try to push them to somehow convince them to buy that house that you're in. And I think that's hilarious because there's nothing that you or I could say that would convince someone to buy a house that they didn't love. So that's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have to second that as well, which is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, was just to have, very transparent and fluid conversations with individuals who are just love and appreciate an area. Like that's what it boils down to. And us as service providers, I think, get that bad rap of just being pushy salespeople. So with that said, Yvonne, I would love for you to paint this picture for us. And I know you mentioned this earlier about just the perfect setup, or at least the setup that a lot of people are looking for in a community. Specifically, if you wouldn't mind touching on the schools, and then also the military population as well, just the dynamic nature of the community and how you service them.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of things here that really support a robust real estate market. We do have some of the top rated schools in the country, and I think Thomas Jefferson High School of Science and Technology might even be number one. I mean, it is ranked up there. And so wherever you go in Fairfax County, you're likely to come across really high rated high schools, and that is a big draw to this area. And when I moved here and I was joining kindergarten, my parents really, really appreciated the cleanliness, the community of the schools. There was a poster on the wall that my mom still to this day raves about. And it says, every child deserves love, even when they least deserve it. So it's like kind of like, every child needs love. And that was their like MO, right? So just, it's really a special place. A lot of families are drawn to the area for our top-notch schools. And then we've got the military, which is an amazing facet of our community. We've got Fort Belvoir, we've got the Pentagon, all of these really high-level decision makers are coming in and out of this area. And if you're military, you move around a lot. Could be as often as every 2-3 years. And it's an interesting client base to work with. And I have seen some military buyers, they've moved so many times that they will buy a house from a video tour. Oh, wow. I'm not kidding you. Not something I would always recommend, but I've seen it happen before in the past 10 years that I've been in real estate. So really, really awesome to have that presence here and that force here. And, you got people all over the place running a tight ship. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Well, Yvonne, I appreciate you highlighting that. And it definitely is something to say for the Virginia area that they've done really well at, both at the government level and also just the community level, which is supporting our children and supporting our young community members who are trying to figure out, how to go about buying their first home, how to go about finding their first job and
Mhm.
filing for, hopefully using their Virginia 529 resources, right, for educational purposes.
Exactly. That's what my parents did, and it allowed me to, attend Virginia Tech at a rate that was like unheard of at the time. And so yeah, we have so many great in-state colleges as well. As you know, you're right down there. I mean, there's UVA in Charlottesville, James Madison University. Here we have Northern Virginia Community College in Annandale and a couple other locations, as well as George Mason University right here in Fairfax. So, I mean, the options are really, really strong. And then just jobs, right? You have so many different industries here. We have Amazon, we have Google, and then we've got the sort of like hybrid government and, private companies like Freddie Mac. So there's a lot to choose from. We also have in Ashburn, we have like the data center alley or whatever, but 70% of the world's internet traffic actually travels through Loudoun County. And
Wow.
so it's pretty impressive. So I have a lot of friends that work in that IT field as well.
Absolutely. Jobs are very, very strong here in the Virginia area as well. I talk with a lot of folks who are sometimes maybe debating between Virginia and North Carolina. And North Carolina's job field has grown and has been pretty strong over the past 10 years, but it doesn't really have much on Virginia when it comes to the longevity of the influence and the activity that's been poured into the communities for sure. So, Yvonne, as we head into our last section here, I really want to, kind of pivot this conversation a little bit more to you and your services, because I, understand you have a decade's worth of experience in real estate, and you just know a lot about real estate. I mean, I've been looking at your Instagram posts. By the way, I'd love to shout out your stuff at the end of the conversation, but
Perfect.
Just a lot of great tips. So if somebody is thinking about moving to the Virginia area, aside from calling myself or you first, obviously pushy salesman aside, what do you think are some good tips when people are considering a new area and they're, let's say, moving for work or military or school or any of these other factors that they've never been to before? What are some good tips for them to follow?
Yeah, well, I mean, you always want to ask someone ideally, but a local real estate agent is a great place to start. And I promise you, we are never going to, try to sell you on a particular area if we don't already know that you're kind of interested in it, and we're really just trying to help you out and answer those types of general questions that not everyone would know. Like if you told me that you were going to move here to Fairfax, but you weren't going to have a car for the first year, I'd say, well, we definitely need to be close to the metro, but it's also going to take you probably an hour to get into the city. So depending on where you're going, we'd really want to strategize and make sure that that move made sense for you. And then if schools were a consideration for you, we have ways that we can narrow our search in the MLS to only those specific school boundaries that you've already researched on your own. So, and Virginia is also a due diligence
Yes.
state. So they call it buyer beware. So unlike some other states, like I think North Carolina has a due diligence period that's very different from the way things are done here. And so I would always recommend, understand that the seller is not necessarily providing all the information that you might be expecting. You're going to have to ask for it. And if you don't get the answers or you can't get the answers you're looking for, then you're going to want to do inspections and, find out other, facts about the property through your own due diligence, public records, things like that. And so that's a big thing I get from out-of-state clients is not really understanding where in Maryland, you'll get, I think, 3 or 4 pages of disclosures on every little thing that was done to the house. That's not the case here. So you want to be aware of that as you're going into that situation.
Absolutely. And do you notice a difference when you cross that Virginia line into the territory of DC? Do you service the DC area too?
So I am not licensed in DC or Maryland, but I do partner with some of the top agents in my office if my clients are looking in both areas or if they need a really solid referral. And there are so many differences. So I was on a team prior and I had there was an agent that was licensed in DC. So I've gone through the paperwork, I've been in there, but it's not my true expertise. And so I'd always want to put someone in touch with someone who's really, really tuned into that local market in DC. And I find there's certain things you'd want to know. Like if you told me you wanted an investment property, I'd say you would want to think twice before going into DC because DC has very, very strong tenant laws and they have first right of refusal. So before you put your home on the market, you've got to offer it to the tenant first. It's not the same, in Virginia. You don't have to jump through those types of hoops. And in Maryland, like I said, you have pages and pages of disclosures. So it does feel different in that respect.
Absolutely. And that's such a true testament to what you said earlier, Ron, which is just being a resource. I really appreciate you sharing that because there's so much more that goes into it than just a borderline. Because it's like, oh, I'm on a new part of town. Like it should be the same. Like, no, this is like a whole nother world. And as we wrap up today's conversation, I have some fun questions and comparisons to do with you, Yvonne, just to kind of compare our areas together. So one of the things that I do know about Northern Virginia that it's lacking in is and at least from a very different perspective here in Hampton Roads, which is the access to the beach or the water. So would you mind?
You got us there.
Would you mind sharing maybe some alternatives if somebody does enjoy going to the beach or does enjoy doing water type activities? Is there anything like that in Northern Virginia, or do you have to go somewhere to get it?
So, we have some lakes that are within a couple hours driving distance. But as far as the ocean, which I understand because I was born in California, I grew up visiting the ocean every single summer. My personal favorite right now is Ocean City, Maryland, because you can get there within, 3.5 hours drive, and you can do it in a day if you had to. And as a realtor who doesn't get a lot of weekends off, that comes in handy.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, a lot of us go down to Virginia Beach, and then a surprising amount, we go all the way down to Outer Banks, North Carolina. So, you're not going to get a beach right outside your front door here, but you will get a lot of other things. And, we have those like lush parks and places you can visit that offer a different kind of vibe. So.
Absolutely. And Yvonne, I will say in respect to NoVA, you guys have us on when it comes to the restaurant game. Hear me out now. All my Virginia Beach folks are up in arms right now. We have a great seafood selection. However, in some categories, burgers and pizza included, we're just struggling in that department. I think Virginia Beach got like the worst pizza review with Barstool Sports or some other conglomerate of pizza professional eaters or whatnot. So you guys definitely have a great food scene as well. I definitely want to highlight that. Well, Yvonne, as we wrap up today's conversation, I just wanted to say thank you for your time. And then also if folks are, let's just say they're just interested in getting to know the area more, or maybe they have some questions about investment properties or PCOSing to the area, where can people go to learn more about yourself and how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so if you're on social media, you can find me at Yvonne Yee Realtor. And that's pretty much the same if it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. That's a good place to start. And it's me, I run my social media accounts. So if you're messaging me, it's going to be me that's getting back to you. And then, I would say nowadays, a lot of people are on YouTube. I've got videos up there as well, and it would be that same Yvonne Yee Realtor where you can find me. And always feel free to give me a call. My direct number is 703-254-7057, And I am, constantly texting with people from out of town who are sometimes struggling to find an affordable place around here. And so I can help guide you to some of the areas you might be interested in and answer, again, any questions you might have.
Awesome. Yvonne, thank you for sharing that. I'll have your information in the show notes below. So when you're at a safe place and done listening to this podcast, definitely go check out Yvonne on social. She's a tremendous resource. Yvonne, thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.